Hello, everybody, and welcome to ChatGPA. My name's Chloe. Welcome. And ChatGPA is a podcast dedicated to talking about realistic college student mental health care. Whether you're a graduate student or an undergraduate student, we're all busy, and sometimes we get overwhelmed. That's actually what today's podcast episode is about. And so today I'm kind of going to have a pretty short podcast episode. I know I've said that maybe a few podcast episodes ago of hey, today's going to be really short, and then it turns out I talk for 40 minutes. We'll see if that happens. But things have been crazy for me. I mean, sometimes that just happens in college where life starts to move up to Mach 10 and things just start to go crazy. Like schoolwork, there's so much going on with that. Just so much going on right now. That's why this podcast is actually coming out a little late. Sorry about that. But overwhelm happens in college. Sometimes there's just periods of time where everything is just moving too fast, or there's just too much, or you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders between essays, projects, exams. If you're in an organization stuff, research lab stuff, sometimes it feels like everything you're up to can just get overwhelming. And in all honesty, that's how I'm feeling right now. Anyway, if you ever feel like this, I very much completely understand. There's thousands of students on wherever campus you're at who understand and have felt the same way. I mean, there's just periods of time where that happens. Finals, things get busy, just things happen. But because it's kind of what's going on with me right now, it's kind of what I've got on the brain. I have learned the hard way sometimes about how to handle feeling overwhelmed. I mean, it's very much not a pleasant feeling at all, but there's some ways that I do that personally helps me. One of the things that can help me a lot is kind of mentally taking a step back and not looking at the big picture. Because one of the things that can get me feeling really overwhelmed is mentally seeing the big picture of all my to-dos, everything I need to do, and it's sometimes there really is a list of 50 things you need to do. And that can be really overwhelming. How could I possibly get all this done in the amount of time that I have? And, try to eat and sleep and things like that. Sleep is actually one of the things I have to prioritize whenever I'm overwhelmed. Because if I don't sleep or if I get less sleep, I work slower. My work is a lot lower quality than I want it to be on low sleep because, my brain isn't working, so my work isn't going to be nearly as good as I want it to be. And whenever I'm on low sleep, my emotions get even more out of whack, on top of feeling overwhelmed, and it's just kind of a whole mess. So anyway, prioritize sleep. That's what I have to do. But anyway, instead of looking at my entire to-do list, what really helps me kind of focus and not get bogged down by everything I need to do is just looking at baby steps. Today, today is actually a day where I've had to do that, where I'm okay, what is the one next thing I need to do? And this morning it was eat breakfast. Then I was okay, what's the one next thing I need to do now? And that's, okay, I need to leave my apartment and go to class. And then it's just kind of a series of, okay, what do I need to do now? Because focusing on just the one thing I need to do next, no matter how small it is, makes everything seem more manageable. One thing is mentally a whole lot more manageable than 50 things. And I use those baby steps for as long as I need to. Some days it really helps me where I just need to just focus on baby steps from whenever I wake up to whenever I go to bed. It helps me calm down that sense of overwhelm. And I think doing that also gives me a sense of accomplishment Because whenever I'm busy and just like chugging through a to-do list, I hardly take the time whenever I do finish something that was hard or stressful to take a step back and say, hey, you know what? That's done now. I'm proud of myself. But whenever I focus on the baby steps of things, of, okay, what do I need to do next? Okay, that thing's done. What do I need to do next? There's a moment of, okay, that thing's done, which lets me be like, oh, I did that. I'm proud of myself for that. And it just helps me a lot. And another thing that helps me is, I think I mentioned this during my little, schedules and routines little episode, but actually writing down my to-do list so I can see it visually helps me feel less overwhelmed too, because it helps reduce my anxiety when I can physically see whether it's an online to-do list or a paper to-do list. It helps calm my anxiety with seeing my list written out. And usually whenever I do my to-do list, it's written in order of due dates or priority or things like that. So I don't have to keep all that in my head. It's a lot to remember 15 things I need to do today, and then another thing to remember is organizing them in priority, or a lot of the time that ends up with me forgetting something important and then freaking out and worrying and then having higher anxiety because, oh my goodness, I forgot something important. When instead, if I write out my to-do list, I can just bring it up whenever I want and I don't worry about forgetting something. And it kind of helps with the feeling of stopping to be happy that something's completed too. Kind of what I mentioned about the baby steps is it's whenever you cross out something from your to-do list or check it off, erase it, something, that is a satisfying feeling where you're physically showing yourself look, I did this thing. It is no longer in my to-do list, so I no longer need to worry or stress about it. And I think the last thing I try to focus on whenever I'm feeling this overwhelmed feeling is purposefully focusing on the things that take care of my mental health. And that is unexpectedly hard whenever it comes to feeling overwhelmed, especially whenever some things that take care of my mental health require energy, and I already have not a whole lot to give to anything. And whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, it can be really tempting to take away the time dedicated or that you would have used for relaxation or sleep or breathing, and instead using that to work or check more things off of your to-do list. For a while in college, I did that. I absolutely would stay up so late, getting my work done because I was stressed instead of just letting myself sleep. But if I overwork myself when I'm overwhelmed, that causes kind of a catastrophe for me, way worse than anything I'd feel if I chose not to do that work and rest instead. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is whatever helps your mental health, make sure you don't stop doing that whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, because it is tempting to use that time. Whenever you think to yourself, okay, getting one more thing off my to-do list, completing one more essay tonight will make me feel better because it'll reduce my anxiety, because I'll get one more thing done. And sure, getting things done does help my anxiety and help me feel better that I checked it off. But whenever it comes to a point where I'm trading time dedicated or that I should be using for relaxing or getting ready to sleep or eating, something like that, it costs me way more than I gain. I did that. This is something I so had to learn the hard way. And I learned whenever I would trade that time and overwork instead, I would just completely tax my energy and feel more stressed because I'm trying to work with not a super active brain. It's stressful whenever you're trying to work, whenever you don't have any energy to give. And I end up feeling a whole lot more stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed than before. Anyway, it's just I'm kind of harping on it about like taking care of your mental health, and my mental health whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, because like, I mean, I know this is a mental health focused podcast, but it really is essential for me to focus on taking care of myself whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed. Because whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, that is one of the hardest times to take care of myself. But it's also the time where I most need to take care of myself. That's whenever I need much more care than I usually do. And so for me, that can look like making sure I do some short breathing exercises throughout the day. One of my favorite little ones that I like to do, there's like a bunch of different breathing exercises out there, but two of my favorite ones that I can just do throughout the day, whether I'm working or not, or trying to get from one building to the other, I can breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, and hold for a count of 4. And that's called box breathing. And that's relaxing for me. And then another breathing exercise that works on me is just breathing out just a little bit longer than you breathe in. And that kind of relaxes my system. I know there's science out there for all of this. I currently don't have it with me right now. But that's kind of the thing I do at the end of the podcast with y'all. And you know what? Let's do one right now. Let's take a big deep breath in. And a long, slow, deep breath out. And so I do little breathing exercises like that during the day to help keep my stress levels a little bit calmer than they would be if I didn't do that. And making sure I eat often throughout the day whenever I need to, and make sure I'm eating enough and having enough water throughout the day too. Like, I'm already stressed because of my to-do list. I don't need to stress my body out even more by not eating enough or drinking enough. That's another thing that I personally have to focus on. And lastly, I also really have to focus on making sure I relax before bed. Because if I don't give myself time to wind down and actually have a bit of a breather before bed, my quality of sleep kind of goes down the tube. Like, tossing and turning, taking a while to go to sleep. And then the next day I feel exhausted, which exhausted and overwhelmed is a pretty bad combination. Anyway, that's just some of the things that I have to focus on for myself. And your top priorities might look different than mine. I do still recommend like prioritizing sleep and water and food, because I mean that's just, it's really important. I've talked about the importance of like sleep and nutrition in some previous episodes. I still need to post an episode talking about like hydration and water, but don't let your brains turn into raisins, guys. We need hydrated brains. But anyway, I think that might be done for today's episode. Today really was kind of a short one. Before we get going, my little disclaimer I say is I am just a Texas A&M student. I am absolutely not a professional. I'm not a mental health professional or anything like that. And if you do struggle with feeling overwhelmed, especially if you feel overwhelmed a lot, or like really low energy a lot, or even just like a little, like no problem is too small to go ask for some advice. That's what I do. And I highly recommend the University Health Services here at Texas A&M. They really truly are nice, kind people. And I do my best with giving y'all advice, but it's a completely different layer of helpfulness whenever you can talk to someone and get validation and personalized help and plans from someone who cares. The people there really do care. And so if it's something you think might be helpful to you, even if you're not sure if you're going to like it or not, but I just recommend going there and trying. But anyway, I'll put this link in my description or show notes. And it's the University Health Services appointment page. And if you go to the appointment page, you can click on the appointment button that brings you to the portal where you can book appointments. So you don't even have to call or talk to anyone face to face to make an appointment. You can just make it online. It's great. Anyway, I highly recommend that, and I'll have that link in my show notes. Another thing is that I would love to hear from you guys. I love seeing comments or feedback from you guys. It helps me make this podcast better because I want to do the very best I can for you. And hearing your feedback or what you think, it means a lot to me. Liking, commenting, subscribing, however it works, whatever platform you're listening to on. That helps me get the word out to other fellow college students who might be struggling sometimes with their mental health or could use some advice. And then the very last thing that we do, I think this is my favorite part of the podcast, is let's do a deep breath in and a long, slow, deep breath out. And I believe in you today. No matter how long your to-do list is or how overwhelmed you feel or how stressed you feel or anxious, I believe in you and I really mean it. Let's get on with our days, and I believe in us. I'll see y'all next time.